Great. We are officially live. I'll just wait a minute to let people start joining in, and then we can kick things off.
Okay. And you can still see my screen okay?
Yeah, looks great. Awesome. I see some people have already started to join. Let's just wait another 30 seconds or so we get a couple more people in here. Awesome. Let's get started then. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It is our final set of sessions at Amplify today, and then after this, all we have is the after party. So I'm super excited to introduce Brian Stash from ATI, who will be talking about from wrenches to wealth, transitioning from an owner or operator to a business owner in today's session. If you have any questions during the session, please feel free to drop them down below, or we can even go over them at the end if we have some time. And with that, over to you, Brian. Let's get started.
Great. Thank you, Dula, and welcome everybody. On my session of transitioning from an owner operator to a business owner, a strategic business owner. And this is a topic I am very passionate about. I get to teach several classes at ATI, but one of them is about succession planning. And this one is just a cool topic. And my objectives for you guys today in the 50 minutes that we have is to help identify the key differences between working in the business and on it. And I'm sure you guys have heard that a lot. How to develop a clear succession or transition plan to delegate operational responsibilities. Learn some strategies to structure your shop for profitability without direct daily involvement. And understand the mindset shift and skills required to transition into a leadership role focused on business growth. And some of the takeaways for you guys, and while I'm here, if you got a pad and a pen, grab it. Hopefully you're going to need it. If you have a tablet and a keyboard, get ready. Hopefully you're going to need it. But I did download a copy of this presentation in chat just for future reference. So if you'd like, grab that out of chat, park it on a desktop or print. But some of the takeaways I hope for you to get out of here is a clear, actionable roadmap to transition, knowledge of the key systems and personnel to implement, and tools to maintain oversight of financial performance, and insight into common pitfalls during the transition. But first, here I talk about a clear, actionable roadmap. What I'm hoping you're going to walk away with are some thoughts or your vision of 4 different steps on how to do this and how to do it well. But let's first define the 2 roles. Owner operator, and I know you guys know this when you feel it. You guys wear 100 hats: tech, advisor, bookkeeper, parts manager, sales manager, customer service rep, parts expediter, parts, and so on. And you're heavily involved in the daily operations. And unfortunately, the business cannot run without your presence. You become the subject matter expert that everybody, customers and internal customers, depend on. And it is tough to create strategy and grow a business while you're busy in the daily operations. And income, whether it's for you or the business, is directly tied to the time and effort you spend in the shop. Now, I can promise you this: a strategic business owner is a much more attractive role because we pull you out of the daily and then start focusing more on the weekly and the monthly responsibilities, which affords you time to focus on growth, the leadership, and higher level decision making. And the shop operates smoothly without your daily involvement. And incomes becomes more passive based on systems and team performance. So looking at this, owner operator or strategic business owner, which one of these 2 look more attractive to you? Now, some of the pain points of the owner operator: burnout, bottlenecking, business growth is capped to your capacity and your availability, lack of scalability. This shop can't expand or open additional location because it relies too heavily on you. Oh, and as much as people say it's not going to attract or draw attention or draw you, yeah, everything becomes the new shop or the next shop. So scalability is just not probable with you being the owner and daily responsibilities. And this one, and I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the process of how they value a business, but a business where the owner or the business depends on that owner makes it very difficult to sell, or you will never really get your return on equity out of the business you'd like to have. So there's some of your pain points. Let's talk about the benefits. Freedom and flexibility. Take time off, focus on other investments or other ventures. By you focusing on more of the weekly and the monthly, it allows you to move on and do other things. Some of the big A agenda, some of the stuff that you decide or thought you might want to be when you grow up, but it affords a business owner time to do whatever they want. It does increase the value. Businesses with systems and leadership in place are much more attractive to a buyer. Now, you got to think about this. When someone's looking to buy a business, a true entrepreneur or a business head, they're looking for a business, they're not looking for a job. And unfortunately, the value of that business gets crushed. Scalable growth, as we just talked about, you can grow into multiple base locations without cloning yourself. But it's funny that I mentioned cloning yourself, because one of the exercises I want to have you do is thinking about cloning yourself. And here's a good one. Part of Wrenches to Wealth, part of my title. It allows you to focus on profits, efficiency, and strategic partnership instead of turning wrenches. Building a business with maximizing profitability, managing expenses, managing cash flow. And that's how wealth is built, regardless of the industry. So now here's where I'm going to ask you to grab that pad or pen, grab a keyboard, or however you want to do this. But here comes your step-by-step plan on how to become the strategic business. And as you can see, step one, define your vision. Basically, this is about what do you want? So what I'm going to ask you to think about here is, what are your goals? And yes, I am going to ask you to write these down, because I promised you in the beginning, we're going to create some action steps how to get there. So clarify your personal goals. And this could be things like, how much time do you want to spend in the business per day, per week, per month? And how much freedom are you really looking for? So I'm going to ask you to take them, and I'll give you a minute or two. Please write that down. And this will come into play when we start talking about your responsibilities. So go ahead and write that down for me. How much time do you want to spend, and how much freedom are you looking for? Second, as far as personal goals, what does financial independence look like to you? What kind of income are you looking for out of the business? What kind of retirement funding are you probably going to need? So, what does financial independence look like to you? And deep down, I hope you guys are thinking big on this. Don't get all wimpy. Think big. And when it comes to succession planning, please take note. A lot of people feel that this word succession planning is only when a business owner decides they're tired, they want to retire, they want to sell. That is not true. Succession planning is about developing internal people that may have the ability or the skill set or the want to become a business leader. So, what I'm trying to share with you here is I want to put you in a position with weekly and monthly responsibilities. Have somebody else help you with the daily operations. But what does succession look like to you? Do you want to become an absentee owner? Do you want to become what I like to call the mascot? And some people take that word wrong, but I mean it very respectfully, because to me, a mascot is the business owner that shows up. I don't want to say when they want to, but they are not there to open the shop because you're awesome people to do it. Technicians are there ready to rock and roll. Cars are in, everything's ready to go. You show up when you decide you want to. You head to the front office or the front counter and you BS with your service advisors. How's life? How's the family if they have one? How are the kids if they have it? How are you? And you do that because you want to. And then you write up a ticket or two, you BS with the customer or two, you drop a customer off at home or two or work, and you do that because you want to, not because you have to. Then you head back to the bays and you check out the techs, you hang out with them, you see how their life is going, and you do that because you want to, not because you have to. Then you head to your office or wherever your workstation is. You move your money around, you check your KPIs, you look at your marketing efforts, check your bank accounts, and you're out of Dodge by 11 o'clock. To me, that's a mascot. And I wish I could see your hands because I want to ask you, how many of you want to be a mascot? So that's what my session's kind of about. So please, what are your goals? Time and freedom, financial independence, and what does succession look like to you? Am I going to sell it, turn it over to a second in command, next generation? There's a lot of ways to think about. Now, I also want you to think about what do you want the future state of the business to look like? And we just talking volume, bigger volume, capacity growth of the business, larger net profits. We're talking about more locations. What does the desired future of your business look like? And this also could include expansion of profit centers like ADOS, like mobile, any other different types of profit centers. What do you want business to look like? And then evaluate your current involvement and identify areas of independence. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do with this one, and I might touch base on this later, but I need you to think about or write down, what do you do all day? What do you touch? If you pick it up, write it down. If you touch it, write it down. If you deliver it, write it down. So if I don't mention this in another step, I want you to make a list of everything you do, unless you already have a job description and a list of responsibilities, which most shop owners unfortunately don't have. So you need to write down everything you touch. Then I want you to categorize it, whether it's daily, weekly, or monthly, whenever you do it. And I'm also going to want you to think about how long might these take? Because up here, I talked about time and your personal goals. Based off of what you're already doing, how long does each one of these take? Write it down, categorize it daily, weekly, monthly. How long does it take? And then I want you to circle what you want to keep. Now, from that exercise, based off of how much time and freedom you want, determine how much you want to keep. And from there, you need to create a job description for yourself and a list of responsibilities. And the items that you did not circle back here, I need you to add them to or develop a job description or a list of responsibilities for a potential manager or second in command or somebody that's going to run the business with you and for you and handle the daily operations while you afford yourself some time to do the weekly and the monthlies. So I'll give you a minute or two to just wrap that up. And if time doesn't allow you to do that now, please grab the presentation. And if you are really interested in becoming the strategic business owner your business needs, to me, this is a priority. You do with it what you will, but this is step one. What are your goals? What's the future state of the business? And what role do you really want to play? Now, step two is build a strong team. And when I'm talking about building a strong team, yes, you will be either hiring or promoting and developing. I hope you have somebody as part of the business that might make a good manager, general manager, or second in command. If not, you will have to look for some outside resources. And then I want you to think about what key positions and roles that must operate independently of the owner. So, in other words, what would your team look like to be able to hit the goals that you wrote down for the business? Here, I might be referring to an organization chart with this. And again, when it comes to org charts, we look at org charts a little backwards because typically org chart starts with the leader up top, associates, and so on. We are believers that you as a leader start at the bottom. And with that, your job is to support advisors, managers, second in command. Their job is to support your technicians. The technician's job is to support the customers all the way through. So I want you to think about, develop what an org chart might look like. And plus, and I know it's tough to predict the future, but what do you need today to operate independently? Let alone what do you need to help you build the business? And if you're talking more volume, you need to think about what future number of technicians and how many advisors are you going to need to support that, and maybe other support roles. So what are the key positions? Establishing accountability systems and regular KPIs and role production goals or expectations. Every role in your shop has expectations. Your technicians should have goals for production. And I hate to use that word expectation because it sounds kind of hard, but how much would you need out of the technicians to support where you want to take your business? Also, with your advisors, we do an exercise called a win number drill based off of fixed and operating expenses and a desired net, and backwards math based off of a gross profit margin to build a sales volume. From that sales volume, I'll help you with marketing plans on how many cars at a particular average repair order do I need, let alone how many techs based on the build hours and how many advisors are going to take to manage those technicians. There is no perfect number anymore. There is no more of that one writer, three techs, 8, 9, 10 cars a day. That just does not, it's not effective. Simply because people are different. Some can manage more than others, but some can manage less. And it also depends on how fine-tuned is your technology in your business. So when it comes to building the team, promoting and developing, and I'm going to expand on this one in just a second. What are the positions and roles that must operate independently of you to drive the business to where you want to take it as you did in step one? And then what are the accountabilities? What are the compensation models? What are the role expectations? And any other key performance indicator you have for that particular person. Now, the problem with this word accountability, most people associate it with pain. It doesn't have to be. And I am not talking about firing somebody. Not at all. We are not in this world. You need to do your due diligence. And yes, I'm talking about coaching. I'm talking about one-on-ones, but I really am also talking about performance-based compensation models that they get paid based off of their performance to a degree. It's a different world than it used to be 10 years ago, but I think you know what I mean. But what's the accountabilities? Now, I did say promoting and developing, and I said I'm going to expand on this one a little bit. And I was pretty sure I was going to bring this back up, but I want to review what it takes to develop a good second in command. Now, the problem with us gentlemen running a repair shop, yeah, some of us just have issues. But the problem with running a repair shop, we typically go in and we do the things we do. Why? Because that's what we do. We don't ever write anything down. We don't bother to train anybody or develop. But here's where I mentioned earlier about cloning yourself. Yeah, that's not a great term, but how many of you would like somebody to be able to handle some of your responsibilities? This is what I'm talking about. And I'd already mentioned about make your list. And this is going to take you a while. This is not an exercise for today. Make your list. What do you do? What do you touch? Prioritize it daily, weekly, or monthly. In other words, the when. When do I do this? And also, I mentioned about how long might these items take, which is not always easy to identify. But the question here is based off of the time and freedom you want from the business or time you want to spend in and the freedom you don't, what do you want to keep? From this list, what do you want to keep and what do you want to delegate? And here's a good one, which definitely a little time consuming. But do you have documented process on how you do the items that you do? For some of it, maybe, maybe not, but for all of it, you need a documented process. How do they do the things you do? And this one is also going to share with you how do you train them. But also with this, develop a training timeline. By when will certain things be trained? And yes, we could go back to the time and the freedom, but how quick do you want that? But now the problem here is you cannot throw people to the wolves. This should be step by step and an item or two per week, but that all depends on how much you've already started. So again, step one is what are your goals? What do you want? Step two, build the team. And this takes a little bit, as we just talked about, and this might be a little bit longer than some of the other ones, creating your vision. Now, this, I'm not going to lie, this is work, but I promise you it's good work, especially for those of you that like that idea of becoming the mascot. And you know, I mean that with the right heart and the right intention. But for those of you that like that concept, this is a necessary evil. You will not shortcut this. Now, step three, and I just want to kind of check my timing here. You need to systematize your business. And that is talking about building a process dependent business, not a people dependent business. And what's the difference? Here it comes, and you know this. How many of you have ever been in a position that when you had a particular person at the shop, maybe more than one, and life was great? You did this in sales, we didn't have comebacks, we didn't do this, or we did this, we did that. Life was awesome. And then, unfortunately, you lost that person. And then things became not so awesome. You didn't have the sales volume. You had more comebacks. You just had issues you didn't have when you had those people or that particular person. To me, that is a people dependent business. You need to build a process dependent business to create consistency across the board, whether it's technicians, whether it's advisors, whether it's workflow, whether it's quality of work, quality control. Basically, you need to create standardized operating procedures, documented process. Now, this, I really don't know how many you need. At ATI, I have about 150 documented processes for shop. I didn't write them all, nor do I expect you. A lot of these were donated by other shops. But this all depends on what do you want for your business. You will need a lot. You need um, job processes, operating procedures for all the services and all the work you do. You need bay cleanup. You need inventory scheduling, customer service, financial tracking. There's just countless number of process. Again, process dependent. And I am a big believer in the fact that with a documented process, it makes it so much easier for someone to step in when somebody's gone if they know how to do it and know when to do it. The when and who come from the job descriptions. The how come from your standard operating procedures or working instructions, however you want to define that. It makes hiring a lot easier based off of the processes for a particular role. When it comes to your interviewing, looking at core competencies, training is much easier based off of knowing the roles. Life just goes so much better with documented process. Again, I get it. It's work, but good work. And again, for those of you trying to build a business to run that you don't have to be there all day, every day, and keeping your finger on the pulse every day, all day, developing the process affords you the confidence and trust that your team can do things the way you want them done, and you can just stick with your weekly and your monthly responsibilities. So far, how does that sound? Work, no question, but recommendation, twofold. Whoever currently does those procedures, they might be great to help you write the process. But how many of you are familiar with artificial intelligence and things like ChatGPT today? Oh, what a great way to write process. Allow the internet to do the work for you. Give me or define a great process to be able to perform an oil service on a particular flavor of automobile. It will write that out for you. In my experience with Chat, it gets you about 85 or 90% of the way there. You just got to clean it up. But that also, while I'm on this subject, and I do have time, when it comes to this subject about systematizing your business, Chat GPT is also great at writing labor functions, policies and procedures, and things of that nature. So, unfortunately, wrap your head around AI, and I'm not sure how you feel about it, but I find it very cool. Speaking of cool, what about technology? Choosing the right software and tools for efficiency. And there's many things I could be talking about here. And I'm not only talking about your equipment like alignment racks, management systems. I am also talking about the digital vehicle inspections, the workflow process, anything and the management system, because these are the kind of things that make things more efficient, but also go under the systematize your business. And just in case you're wondering, or care. When it comes to business valuations for anybody thinking about selling down the road, the more state of the art and the more attractive the business looks to potential buyers, and it does help increase your multipliers. So, step one, what do you want? What are your goals? Step two, build the team. Which, yep, there's a little bit of work, but it's great work. Step three, systematize your business. Operating procedures, implementing systems, the right technology. And here's one that might take us a little while to talk about. Because step number 4 in doing this, and doing this well, is understanding and tracking KPIs or key performance indicators for your business. Now, I do understand not everybody likes numbers, and I can promise you I'm not going to make that any better. But what I do want to share with you is a bunch of key performance indicators that I think you should be focused on. because we talked in the beginning, how do you monitor this without you having to be there, without you having to watch it? Track, keep, or create the key performance indicators you want. And then hopefully through your management system or other type of a dashboard, track it. And are we doing what we need to do? So please take a couple minutes and write these down for me. And my guess is you know a bunch of them, maybe not all. Where do I need to be in gross profit dollars for my business to start making the kind of money I need it to make? Now, I want you to write these down. Here's how you determine your gross profit dollar need. Yeah, these are numbers I'd love you to know by the week, because your free people at that front counter, or when you start developing a service advisor, if you don't already have one, they need to know what a good day in your world looks like. So I'm going to talk about to the week, and then you decide, break it down to the day. So first, I mentioned a gross profit dollar need. Now, I have a saying, you don't have to like it, but it is true. Sales are vanity, profit is sanity. Your business needs gross profit dollars. What's the benchmark? Write down whatever your fixed and operating expenses are per week. Now, for this exercise, you could probably grab a 2024 P&L. Think about, I got any expenses coming at me that I'm going to add? And if you decide you might want to bump that by 5% just because you know about some things that are going to be raising because of what's going on in the world, then divide that by 52 weeks. It'll get you darn close. So, for instance, if whatever that magic number is, let's say it boils out to be $30,000 a month, divide that by 4.33. There's what your fixed expenses are going to look like. Or there's the first step in determining a gross profit dollar need. What are my expenses? The second thing I want you to think about, what kind of income do you want for your business, for you as the business owner? So we need to keep four things in mind. What are your bills at work? That's your expenses. What are your bills at home? That's your income. And I also want you to think about any investments into the business. So far I have weekly expenses. How much more do I want to earn weekly? And it's okay to shoot for the stars, or let's just pick a couple steps to get there. Any investments into the business. This could be paying down some short-term debt. This could be investing into equipment. This could be money you're going to keep in the business for retained earnings. And I did a thing earlier about balance sheets. And then I want you to think about what kind of retirement needs are you going to have. So let me revisit that. Fixed expenses per week. Fixed expenses per week. A desired income, additional income for you per week. Investments into the business or paying debt down by the week. And any financial or retirement planning per week. Those numbers, those four items added together, are what I call your gross profit dollar need. Now, with that, if you divide that by your gross profit margin, I'm just going to say 50% because that's a model I teach. And if my fixed expense or my gross profit dollar need is $20,000 a week, I'm going to take that 20 grand divided by 0.5. I now need $40,000 a week in sales. So, as I said, the profit is more important than the sales, because the profit is the profit need, and that's what's going to pay your bills. But if I know what my sales need to look like, I can build a staffing model. I can then build a marketing plan. So, gross profit dollar need, gross profit margin are two KPIs that you will need. What is a sales volume? How much do I need in sales? Then I want you to write down what is your current average repair order, divide that by divide the sales by A or O. That'll tell you what your car count need, or a key performance indicator, or a barometer. How am I doing towards my plan? And then let's talk about profit margins. What is a good indicator for parts margins? I have a number, but what's your plan? How are you going to achieve the gross profit margin you used to get to, or your gross profit need divided by GP? Labor margins, average repair order, hours per ticket, number of billable hours. Take a look at your sales, divide that by your effective labor rate. That'll tell you how many billable hours you need per week. And then break that down to the day. And I hope I gave you enough to chew on there with that. But truly understanding the financial performance indicators for your business that meet your growth plan or what you want to look like needs to be done, needs to be built, and needs to be measured. And here, setting up financial dashboards for remote oversight. Let me back that out of there. Ooh. Anyway, how can you log in to your system? Because most of you have remote access, you can log in. So create the dashboard of the KPIs, and there's your dashboard for management oversight for you to be able to look in. Am I hitting my goals? Am I hitting my target? And then if you're not hitting in your targets, I bet you know what you need to dig into to correct. Now, this last item I have here is about ensuring profitability through pricing strategies and cost control. Cost control. How many of you have some type of a financial model that you're modeling your business after? As in, what is a good parts cost as a percentage of sales? So when you look at total sales, parts cost of goods, what percent does that represent? Now, for me, I teach a model that 20% part sales at 20% of total to hit the goal. But now with this, our industry has been, and who knows if it's going to stay that way, and it's been that way for years. Our business, our industry has been typically roughly 50% parts, 50% labor, or a 50-50 part labor ratio. And to keep my parts cost at 20%, I need a 40% cost on parts because that's half of my business, and a 60% gross profit margin on parts. You will not do that on pricing alone. You'll do that with great matrices in these systems today. You will do that by avoiding the profit leaks, like the consumables, the cleaners, and stuff like that. Also, mismanaged inventory, but also the right blend of repair and service, maintenance and repairs. I also have a similar level of thinking when it comes to the labor side of the business. Labor, 20% of sales. Labor cost, total loaded cost. The wages, the tax and benefit load, the FICA, FUTA, SUTA, workers' comp, uniforms, PT, all of it. Fully burdened payroll. 20% of total sales. But if labor is 50% of my sales, I'm looking for 60% margin on labor. So ensuring profitability through pricing strategies, set up your parts matrix and your management system. And I'm pretty confident with these because there's some great systems today and they already have this typically dialed in. But identifying where is your sweet spot or your average cost of parts sold, and am I in line with a pricing strategy to hit the kind of gross profit margin I need? And then based off of my labor cost, fully burdened payroll, what does my effective labor rate need to look like to maintain a 60% gross profit margin? Now, hypothetically, let's say your total cost is $50. Yeah, $50. And I'm going light these days. And to hold a 60% margin, you need to maintain an effective labor rate of 125 plus. 2.5 times the loaded cost. And I'm going with the most expensive technician in here when you do this. Now, the difference between an effective labor rate and a labor rate, and I'm pretty sure you know this, labor rate's what you build your estimates with. Effective labor rate's what you keep. Average shop USA drops around 10%. So ensuring pricing, total burden cost times a 2.5 multiplier plus, that'll tell you an effective labor rate you need. Now, with that, step one was define your vision. And I hope I allowed you a few minutes to be able to write that down. If not, I'd love to get a show of hands that for those of you that want to become the strategic business owner you signed up for this event to become, I am going to ask you to commit some time outside of this. What do you want? Number two, start building the team. And again, that starts with what role do you want to play? What would the role of a future second in command or manager, whatever you want to call that individual, someone that's going to run the business for you, COO, if you will, while you step back and become the CEO. That's work, but I promise you it's good work, especially if you like the idea of being that mascot, the face and voice of the community. You be there for your community. You be there as the face and voice for your automotive repair facility, but an awesome team that does it with you and for you. Number three, systematize your business. You want to create a well-oiled machine. You need to document what does a well-oiled machine look like. And for this particular exercise, operating procedures, process for everything. Sorry, that's just the way that it is. And then monitor the financial performance of your business. And again, we talked about a financial model, sales margin, expenses to win, your gross profit dollar need in dollars and dollars per hour, gross profit dollars per hour, marketing, car count, and ARO, goals and expectations set. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's my story on how do you go from wrench to wealth. I hope this gave you a lot to work with. So now we do have a few minutes left. I don't see any questions in chat, but we do have a few minutes. So do any of you have any questions I can possibly help you with while I have you here?
Thank you so much, Brian. That was a great session.
Oh, thank you. And I'm going with no, being that nobody responded with questions.
I think not. I think you did such a thorough job in explaining, going through everything that even I don't have questions, and I'm not
Cool.
even a shop owner. So I think
Awesome.
great session. It was super, super fun, really engaging, and I think some really good insights and things to think about really as we take away from this. So I really appreciate the session today.
Oh, no, thank you very much for having me. And if anybody has any questions, I do believe my friends over at AutoLeap and Amplify know how to reach me.
For sure. If you need anything, you can just contact us and we will connect you over with Brian and ATI as well. Thank you everybody for attending the session, and thank you once again, Brian. There is a QR code on the
Yep.
screen that you can feel free to scan. I'm guessing, Brian, this is the good way to get in touch with you.
This would be a great way to get in touch with myself. This would be a great way to learn a little bit more about what we do and some of the tools that I spoke about. How do we build the certain things that we build?
Awesome. Yeah. So let's leave that up for a minute so everyone has a chance to scan that because I know everybody would love to get access to those tools. Um, and in the meantime, I just want to remind everybody this was the last session of the day, but we do have a small after party starting in 15 minutes. So for all of you who participated and were part of all the games and stuff, do head on over there. We're going to be announcing the winners, and we're also just going to be doing some fun run-throughs of the day and everything we took away from it. So I
Great,
hope to see you guys there.
great. Thanks again for hanging out with me, ladies and gentlemen.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.